Is there actual evidence that it damages structures? Well, these are really amazing brain scans looking at wiring tracks. So being an engineer in wiring, those red dots you see are differentials between those exposed to anger, parental anger, as well as peer bullying. And you can see the differences between those exposed and control groups. And affects all the neural networks, not just one specifically. Going back to the Nobel Prize work, of course, I've turned it into musician talk. There are 4 elements that came out of that chronic stress narratives of the participants in the studies. And I've named them fondly the 4 Teletubbies. They're seeing red, i.e. freaking out. Ruminating, going over and over and over that wrong note I did in the 4th Ballade of Chopin. A threat to ego, well, that guy that has his face all over Steinway, who happens to be Chinese as well. And negative mind wandering. So, geez, if I only had practiced harder, and oh my God. So it's like the Leaf syndrome. It just, I was there in '67, I saw that. Sorry to rub it in, but. Okay, so that shortens telomeres, which are the protective ends of your chromosomes. So that's how some of this biological effect happens, and then the cell blows up and it becomes a mutant and bad things happen. And the immune system doesn't pick them up, and that's why we're such a high-risk population for troubles. Now this is really up my alley. So you notice that there was Miranda and Matt and Molly, and my name doesn't match, so I'm Monkey, one of my favorite tunes by Molly. And what is now being shown, it's not the actual genetic effect, but it's the epigenetic effect of how this all happens. So it's very, very plastic and very sensitive to stress. So you can see if all things bright and beautiful, it's all nice and green, and then stuff happens, as you heard, and then it all turns horrible very quickly. So this is some really interesting data from McGill. So how do you protect yourself? So there's my stage name, Professor Nimchimsky. So you have to protect yourself. It's a tough business, as Molly said. She couldn't say it any better. Just don't put up with it and put out those boundaries. Okay, so whether it be gender boundaries, racial boundaries, musical, artistic boundaries. It's you just put on your noise canceling headphones, and it just doesn't get through. Okay, easier said than done, because there's an accumulation of stories and narratives that resonate, that build upon each other. So, in summary, the high-risk times for injury are change of teacher or instrument. So I'm talking to you students out there. Intense preparation for a performance, new and difficult repertoire. That's why I couldn't make a living as a Canadian composer. And also prolonged periods of performance without rest. So these are the stories I hear every day in the clinic. We just, we put on that opera that was 4.5 hours and we had 3 rehearsals. I said, what? Are you kidding? Well, we don't have enough money. That's the way it goes. Or the conductor changes the program on Friday morning. That's what happened last Friday morning. And the kids somehow had to adapt to it at Kerner Hall. It's pretty wacky. Okay? So some of the things you can control, but other things you can't. And you just have to be able to roll with the punches. This is another 86 slide. So preventing overuse injuries, lots of rest breaks, which is now evidence-based. Stretching, still controversial. What kind of stretches? How fit should you be? Of course, pay attention to your biomechanics. And I think we heard it today. Listen to your body. Don't play through the pain. It's a good signal. Okay? It's telling you something that's not quite right. And so pay attention. So I did bring the lab along, but usually with the limited time I won't wire anybody up. But the main issue I wanted to show you is that much of this is very much intrinsic to our own physiology, our own makeup. Okay, we're in it because we're artists, we love to perform, we love the audience, we get good at it, but what is actually happening? So we heard that listening to yourself is really, really important, but actually seeing your muscle signals, seeing your heart rate change under certain circumstances, seeing your actual brain waves can be extremely powerful in targeting what you want to do with your own self and your relationship with your somewhat challenging environment. So that's what this rig is here for. So how do we cope? Okay, we saw the injury rates are extremely high. They probably should be shut down. It's pretty tough business. It's not for the money. We're doing it for the right reasons, for pleasure and for the art. So you got to get tough. So the ABCs are pretty straightforward. Alignment. So as Molly said, she looks perfect at the piano. So perfect posture. Breathing is crucial because that's the secret in regulating the vagus nerve. Okay, so when you're feeling stressed out, if you breathe, anybody have done yoga and meditation, just let it go. And coordination is everything. So that's what practice is about. But if you're practicing under stress, that stress is going to be wired into your system. So how do you learn how to practice in the studio? By decreasing your stress level, your stress response, and then getting it all perfect. Lifestyle issues are huge. Diet, exercise, something we all need to work on. But more crucially is the focus. What are we actually working on? They call that the flow state. You're seeing that in the Olympics. Boom, it just happens. That's what we strive for. Okay? But we start thinking about what else is somebody thinking about? They're listening to me. Oh my God, you know, there's probably somebody across the ocean who's laughing at me right now. That kind of blows your flow, right? So if you're, you know, playing your instrument, that's why having that team that Molly talked about is that you're comfortable, you feel safe, you feel secure, you're in the game, you're well prepared. That's what it's all about. So you see that in the Olympics, man, talk about preparation and executing under incredible pressure. And the goals. You know, usually I just slip over that goal thing. It's so important you're doing it for the right reasons. Not trying to look good, trying to win that, trying to beat the other guy, trying to get your face on a Steinway poster. You know, doesn't work. Okay, it has to come from your heart, the intrinsic goals, because you love it. And there's nothing else you want to do. Right? There's no pressure. As Molly said, yeah, I sing, but I have other reasons. My music is a vehicle for my advocacy. Okay. So ponder that. So they're very much intrinsic goals. It's who you are, who your culture is, what your politics is about. So in the clinic, sure, we have, whoops, what's happened here? Very dark. We have all kinds of toys, being an engineer. Maybe David can help us. Yeah. I think, I don't know.
What's going to happen if we press them?
So I'll just advance.
Can you go back? Yeah, there we
go. Oh, okay, cool. Brilliant. Anyways, we have all kinds of biofeedback as well as psychotherapeutic techniques to get you more in tune with yourself. That's the concept. So at a biological level, we want to look at muscles, we want to look at motion and alignment. Obviously, the audio-video is important to integrate into that, but also heart rate variability, okay? Making sure it's smooth and not jumping all over. Brainwave biofeedback is very powerful because you can actually train yourself to go into the zone. So that was really pushed forward by the Olympic program. Various psychotherapeutic techniques, one of hundreds and hundreds of blends, mindfulness-based techniques, cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as psychodynamic therapy is standard stuff, as well as a bit of acupuncture, and of course medications when necessary. So it's a bit of a stir fry It's a bit like a Chinese buffet when you come in the clinic. You have no idea what's going on. Well, I actually don't know either. Whatever you want, just try this. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, try something else. So, anyways, that's some of the menus. So here's my control group. So you're probably questioning, is this really scientifically valid? So there's one guy I was invited to study. His name was Garrick Olson. He's one of my big heroes, one of the, I guess, top 5 concert pianists in the world. Notice he's not Chinese. And I flew out to San Francisco, and I said, oh, this Garrick one has agreed to be studied. Oh, great, I'll be there. So he's never been hurt. He won the Chopin when he's just coming out of Juilliard. He does 200 concerts a year. He's now in his 70s, but he's never been hurt, right? I thought, oh, that'd be cool. I wonder what makes this guy tick. So I put on in this case, the EMG, electromyography sensors on him. I said, well, what do you do? Well, I meditate every day. I'm thinking, really? That's a waste of time. So he said, okay, meditate. So I put on the machine there for 10 seconds, and you can see there's absolutely blank in terms of muscle. Absolutely dead quiet. It's beautiful, right? And he says, I practice this, and I do my yoga every day too, and I get my massage every week. I'm thinking, really? I eat and drink what I want. So, and I play what I want, and no piano company owns me. Okay? And the only thing that stresses me out are snowstorms and canceled flights. Okay, that's interesting. So that's him at rest. So that's the default mode network if you're into neurology. So I guess that practiced skill of ramping things down. And then I took a page out of Polanski, the pianist, and one wrong note you die. Said, well, why don't you play a bit of the Chopin Ballade in G minor? Sure, no problem. That's all he's done is record all the Chopin. And he goes and blows, in this case, the Yamaha away. And you can see how beautiful his muscle signals. He's using all his muscles in a very clean, crisp way. Right? So very different than what I see in the clinic, of a lot of clenching and holding and stuff that you wouldn't actually see without the EMG. You can feel trigger points, and you can get them worked out. But in terms of function, you can see how clean his muscle output is and precise his playing. Now, it's a bit unfair. He's 6'4", huge hands, career to dream for. But in terms of technique, it was the perfect guy to study. And also lifestyle-wise, perfect guy to do an interview. So the prevention of overuse is the control of use. So in spite of the way I started, it's pretty depressing data. Oh my God, this is horrible. But we do have the power individually and also collectively to reduce these injury rates, by awareness, by training, the way we raise young students, obviously the way we deal with the industry at large. We've talked about that today, so really don't need to get into it too much. Okay, so I managed to get it done pretty good. Okay, great. Okay, I really wanted to leave some time for questions because, this is just the science, the evidence. There's many ways to play it, so just open it up.
Hi.
Hi.
I had to deal with stage fright with the performance because as soon as I had a choke on a stage, because of that humility, I was really sweating and getting thirsty up there, and I don't know, I had it the hard way. I asked a lot of professors like how to overcome this, and what I did was I just practiced like 100 times more to overcome that. And because I practiced so much, I had better results in the future.
Sure.
And because I went through that stage of fright and anxiety, it made me a better musician to overcome that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I went through that, I had to work harder, I had to practice harder. Do you have anything to say about like, how to overcome stage fright?
Sure. Well, that's the Asian way of dealing with it. Work harder! That's what my dad used to say. You're not as good as Harvard, let's go to medical school. I'll go to medical school. It's even worse, trust me. So anyways, if you apply the neuroplasticity, so you add in the relaxation or the breathing or the yoga techniques or whatever into your practicing while you practice, okay, so what Garrick does, and it becomes, you just relax and safe and secure. And you go into your zone, and you know, short of a nuclear attack, everything's okay, right? But again, you got to practice those stress reduction techniques is what you're doing. So it's the same way as the athletes. You know, you keep crashing on the ski hill, well, you're going to end up in an ambulance, you know, helicopter. So they practice with videos, with the brain waves on, so they're kinesthetically absolutely right on, but also, you know, that fear response is attenuated because they're used to it. And race car drivers do that too with simulators. Astronauts do that.
You came a lot from the expectation.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I'm gonna kill this show, and a lot of people are gonna give me high fives.
Yeah.
But what if I choke? You know, people are not gonna talk to me. You know.
That's the monkey mind. Okay, so that's, yeah, it just goes wild and makes up all kinds of silliness. So don't listen to them. Yep.
So a while back I went to school to study to be a physical therapist. And there are a lot of examples, like, you know, learning all the hundreds of muscles and such, right? And you get nervous. So what I used to do is I used to visualize stuff, especially for practical. There was like OPs called practicals. And it worked. I would visualize like from the first moment to the last. And then I found when I was under examination, I wasn't as stressed out or nervous. So in your experience, have you used visualization techniques? And,
that's all part of the alchemy of the psychotherapy, you know, the imagery techniques, rewriting the narrative. I'm the master. So Kenny Werner wrote that, Effortless Mastery, way back. It's a classic, and some pretty good meditation. There's a website called Bulletproof Musician you can go to that has tons of tips on how to do it. But I'm just giving you the science here. Yeah, you got to practice that skill. It's learned. It just doesn't happen like that. Okay, you heard Molly and Miranda, as well as Matt, talk about how hard they practice. It's not just luck. Okay, you got to be good when the red light goes on. And that's built with good teaching, good support. As you heard. Yep.
I think sometimes if you're under constant pressure, you start to lose your perspective on that you are under stress. So do you have any tips or you know, things where you would, any point, just stop and then take an assessment of yourself without having to do all the kind of fun gadget stuff?
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know, be like, look where your posture is, or look where, anyway, do you have a thing kind of to go through to assess your own level of stress in the moment of time?
There are new gizmos you can get yourself. There's, believe it or not, there's a set of glasses called the Muse, which actually measures your brain waves. And you can actually see how stressed out, screwed up your brain is, and then do the games and exercises and learn to calm it down. There are also apps you can buy for your iPad or your computer that measures your heart rate variability, which is a couple $100, and you can see, you know, oh my God, you know, I'm speaking and my heart rate's 150, you know, like, Jesus, you know, and all red zone, and then you again practice to bring it in back into the green zone. So there's all kinds of self-assessment gizmos now that are available, which are really, really useful. So, yeah.
Can you recommend something for protection of your ears when you're on stage. I mean, I carry earplugs with me when I remember. If I don't, I find a cocktail napkin and some water, shove it in my ears. But for when I'm on stage, I'm very concerned because some of the musicians I've worked with now have tinnitus.
Yep.
And I don't want it.
Yeah. Hot topic, earplugs, how good are they? How flat are they? Most of the, especially in the classical musicians say, and it's really hard to play in an orchestra, but what choice do you have? So they have barriers and all kinds of different seating, etc. You see that at Roy Thompson. People, the brass section is exiled way back in the back. It still sounds the same. Mahler is Mahler. In terms of the jazz stage or the rock stage, in-the-ear monitors are the way to go. Now they're more expensive, but your choices are: I can't hear, I got tinnitus, you know, I'm just a mess. I'm going to be like Eric Clapton and 90% of the rest of the musicians. So that's something that's really preventable, and it's worth the investment to link it into your sound system, and it's all control, not just for the guys that win Junos and Orders of Canada. So Marshall, the audiologist, can fit you with those. They're all custom molded, etc. The earplugs, the straight out of the box, ER15s or 25s, they're uncomfortable, but it's good to have them. When I go to the mod club, God forbid, at my age. It's great. You just stick them in and So the orchestra musicians will have them. It's been a real political tough road just to get hearing tests as well as earplugs if needed, but we're getting through and trying to make it more mandatory in the schools. That's now part of accreditation for all the American music schools. We include marching bands and all the jazz programs. So that's 644 music schools under the umbrella of National Association of Schools of Music. So they put hearing first, injuries, neuromusculoskeletal, and then we've just doing a collaborative project on psychological health, all this anxiety, depression stuff, and of course overdosing and suicides. So again, awareness is number one. Do your dosimetry instead of getting the symptom. You're overexposed, put in a protective device and keep play on happily. Okay.
Is this PowerPoint available on
I can forward it by Dropbox to David, so you can get it.
Yeah, you all of you have my email address because I emailed you about this event.
Yeah.
So please, I'll make sure that John does that, and just email me if you want it.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could talk about different instruments that sort of might lead to more weight on one side of the body. You showed us the diagram of the piano player that you studied, and I'm not primarily a piano player, but I feel like there's a more symmetrical aspect to your body when you play it. You briefly talked about clarinets on one thumb, bassoons on another thumb, saxophone leads to one side, violin leads to one side. Like, how can you account for being relaxed and being really aware of your body when, or playing with correct posture? Everything that you promote with the instrument naturally leads to one side of the body.
Well, this gadget's really useful for quantitatively analyzing asymmetry. So if you go to put my name, Daily Planet, you'll see me doing a little demo with the gizmo with Linnea, a violinist at University of Toronto for Daily Planet. You can sort of look at the squishing of the shoulder and thoracic outlet issues, or rotator cuff in the right shoulder. Same goes for bass players, bent over, and huge forces on the left hand. French horn this way, etc. Okay, so, and you can sort of measure the muscle function in terms of asymmetry. You can look at power output. You can do all kinds of adaptation, and then to design an exercise program or a stretching program or something to offset some of the asymmetry. Okay.
I find that when I'm in a stressful situation or I have a lot of projects going on at the same time, I'm not stressed, but I find I have residual stress after the deadlines are all gone.
Yeah.
Do you have any and I'm sure a lot of people feel that. Do you have any tips on how to de-stress yourself after the fact?
Well, short of a trip to Havana, which is where I'm supposed to be now, except we have a slight problem south of the border to organize our study trip. But other than that, just regular practice of stress reduction, whatever works for you. Right? So if you're into yoga, awesome. If you're into meditation, mindfulness meditation, awesome. Anything that down regulates. Okay. Of course, we go to the bar, and after 2 or 3 pints of whatever, then there are side effects at my age. Or now wine works pretty nicely. Now, one very serious point: just stay away from opiates. Okay. So you go to the sports clinic, you go to Emerge, you're just going to get, well, I think they're clamping down now, but certainly in my day, you'd walk away with your 100 Percocets. Don't fill it out. Okay, don't go down that route. Okay, because we saw Prince at the Super Bowl, but he's dead. Okay, Michael's dead. Okay, and Tom Petty, I didn't know. Sort of suspected. Dolores, same thing. It's just once you're in there, you'll reach for it because. As you well know, heroin was the drug of choice for jazz musicians. Well, it's perfect. It just takes away all your emotional pain. Everything's groovy. You play great. And it's wonderful. There's unfortunate problems. So we miss Bill Evans and many, many others, Ray Charles, because of that. So it's the same thing happens, except that now you can just get it anywhere. It's rampant in the community. And my young associate, Dr. McMillan, he's not here. He's just spent 30 hours awake in the last 32. He's just taken a side job as a coroner. So many of those are fentanyl overdoses. And it's just brutal out there. So just don't go there. You've got a friend, you know somebody, a relative, boom. Get them some help. Yep.
Wondering how much real. What I'm trying to say is that when you get older, you have aches and pains. Wake up in the morning and you're not feeling like you did 20 years ago. And that's very common with me right now. My hands, I play a lot. Hey, that's just life. But how much do you put that to say, okay, it's just because I'm getting older? I'm in my 50s. I probably got more pain since I turned 50 prior to being that. And should I say, okay, well, sometimes I wake up, my hands are so sore, I can't move my fingers until I stretch them. So how much of that is just that, or I'm doing something incorrectly, or can I correct it?
Yeah, so that's the inflammatory response I glossed over, right?
Yeah.
So you just got to do your honest self-inventory.
But how much is it just I'm getting older? Because that's the way I live. I said, well, I'm not worried about it. I'm older, so whatever. I'm still going to do my gig. I play in pain, like you said, but that's life. That's my life. I'm not going to say no to a gig because my fingers hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So you get it assessed, you get treated. We have safer medications, which will become legal in July maybe. But as a physician, that's my main gun right now. I used to use all those fancy
Just say, when
drugs.
you get older, it's okay. There's something out there for you.
But something's going on. So from an inflammatory point of view, not just overuse, but there's an immune system. So it's a bit of a wild goose chase to find out, is it childhood stuff or is my current situation, or what am I thinking about? All those Teletubbies.
So when you say you got hurt when you were younger, I used to be a fighter, so it was because of that. I'm saying it's like use of the hands or overuse in a sense of that kind of concept.
Yeah, well, it's use of all the circuitry, just not the muscles and tendons. Okay, that's what you need to think of. Where are those Teletubbies floating around, the psychological stuff? Also biological, you gotta get your annual physical and check out all those things. Bad things do happen and grow, or clog up, etc. So we're lucky to have a great healthcare system in Canada to get that done. So get it done, right? Yeah, we're getting old, but you're over 50. I'm going to be collecting my old age security in a couple of weeks. I could go down to pay some of the mortgage, hopefully, and the pianos and other past sins. But my mom passed away a year ago. She was 103. Good for her. So I'm thinking,
Good for her.
I don't know, Mom. So she did something right.
Yeah.
And she wasn't part of all this glory and traveling around and doing
A lot
all
of the
this
older
stuff.
cats that I talk to, when I say you got these aches and pains, they say, well, you're just getting old, man. It's getting old, that's it.
Yeah,
And
don't
I'm
stress
still
about it.
playing at 70 and 80 years old, you know?
Yeah.
So I just shrug it off, not worried about it.
Well, we all have stresses, you know. Recall we talked about, you know, some of the great musicians that have come and gone. You know, Jackie Washington made it to 89, laughing all the time. You know, even though life was just, you know, horribly miserable, as you probably know. But he always looked on the bright side.
Great player.
Great player too.
Yeah.
Miss him dearly. As well as Jeff, we heard about today. You know, tough, but you know, always had that side of authentic work, and then worked with Jack quite a bit.
Jack's better seem to live the longest according to that chart.
Well,
Any reason for
maybe
that?
because of the heroin, maybe. No, there's a different way of being, I think, between musical genres. I think if you just look at the popular music from, you know, punk and all of the violence and, you know, rampant drugs and stuff like that, well, jazz is not so bad. You know, as long as you cut back the booze and get off the tobacco and stay reasonably fit, you know, you can have a very long, productive career and make an incredible contribution if you stay healthy. So one of my lines is, you know, Nietzsche said, you know, without music, life would be a mistake. I have that on my dining room table. I twist that. So, you know, without health, right, music would be a mistake. So really, once you get hurt or depressed and whatever, all these maladies that I see day to day, life becomes really a bummer. You know, it really takes the fun out of what you're trying to do. And you see that every day, you know, what are these guys suffering over? You know, that's what every time I see it, you know, who knows tomorrow who it's going to be. But man, oh man, you know, incredible contributors artistically. What the hell's going on? Right, but nobody's really sat down with them and said, hey, you know, let's look at, you know, some of the biology, look at some of the psychology, look at some of the social stuff, biopsychosocial issues that are affecting you. What can you do to make some changes? So it's not just an individual thing by far. I mean, the individual is affected, but it's a community effect. So you say jazz, well, there's certain demographic features in that community. Well, you know, in the punk scene, it's Sid Vicious and all. It's pretty brutal, you know, what you're seeing. And in the rock and roll, well, luckily we have, you know, very powerful spokespersons to speak out. You know, Eric Clapton's come out swinging about his issues and so trying to educate the next generation. So, which is what Pam has been trying to do, bring the artists. We had Phil Dwyer here a year ago, and Steve Page, and some of the classical musicians, and Tom Wilson talk about, you know, their real life struggles on the road in their careers. It's astoundingly powerful. So you can access those videos on the PAMA website, artsmed.org, go to Toronto Meeting 2017. It's just amazing, you know, what people disclose and how they cope, with a lot of humor as well. So they do appreciate, you know, how lucky they are to be an artist in Canada, and to be Canadian and put forward our way of being. So I think that's important, that we appreciate how lucky we are and how important it is to look after our health. Otherwise, the whole mission's lost. Good. I've got my Nietzsche quote in there.
Based on that, on health and on polyvagal theory,
Yeah.
You mentioned diabetes and psychosis. Are they more likely to get hurt more often? Are they starting from below and have to be more conscious that they've started on a different level than the artists that they used?
Not sure I get your question, but are you
Basically, if from that theory, you had sort of a sidearm of diabetes and psychosis and other neurological disorders, are they more likely to not succeed? Are they more likely to injuries more often? Because, they're starting from that place without knowing this is where.
Sure, yeah, so the usual presentation, you have a lump or you end up in emergency with a diabetic event, or you end up with a heart attack or a stroke, or in Jacqueline Dupre's case, MS. So that's how the Western healthcare system is. You go in and then you get into the subspecialty and then eventually you hit the basement. And,
But from a
you know,
musical point of view, have you seen any evidence that they are starting to, like, I'm just thinking of children who come up with diabetes and get diagnosed at early age with things like multiple sclerosis. Are they already going to have, they're going to have a bigger challenge?
Yep. Yeah, those risk profiles have been done. Go to Felitti, not Fellini, Felitti. The Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. It's a massive study of close to 20,000 individuals followed forward in a beautiful place I'd like to be now, San Diego. You know, all educated, mostly white, and then just basically track what type of adversity you were exposed to. And the morbidity and mortality data is just being followed. It's like astounding. So, you know, whether it be tumors or be addictions or suicides or other issues. So that's the Kaiser Permanente's putting big bucks into that. And I think NIH is still funding it. That could be under threat as well. So, but it's amazing the kind of work.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Just wondering, I work, for example, the average person might work for a corporation, you get health benefits for your family, dental, and you know, money that lets you go to a naturopath and all that stuff. So for musicians, can we get health benefits through the musicians union, or is there some kind of protection so that we can enjoy family health benefits and we can come see you and pay your fees?
Well, you're covered under the Canada Health Act, OHIP.
Okay, I know, but you know when you get like health benefits, you get like dental,
Yeah.
and massage, and psychotherapy, and all that great stuff that we could totally benefit from. Just wondering if like the musicians union offers that, if anyone knows.
We've been talking to all the insurance companies for years. They sort of classify us as Formula One race car drivers. I found that in the bar after a hockey game. I said, what's with you guys? He says, oh, we know you guys. We can't make any money off you. So I get my benefits, still $900 a month for the clinic. It's $900 a month for old geezer me and my secretary and her kids. So since government's gonna pay for my blood pressure pills, we can probably stop that. Because I can't spend $900 on me or my staff. So you just gotta negotiate, but that's what I got through, through my medical connections. So again, it's up to the union to negotiate or broadcast that on an advocacy basis. It's a big problem. So we're just even fighting for getting a contract and maintaining some semblance of OHIP provincial health services. So it's tough. When you're in the States, it's unbelievable. It's a joke, in terms of just carrying health insurance. Just an absolutely healthy 30-year-old woman would be, and her one kid, one on the way, would be paying $600 US per month, just in San Diego. Just like what the heck? Yeah, so it's the insurance company, and that's Obamacare. So now it's being stripped, thanks to Trump Care. So one of our pet projects is the New Orleans Musicians Clinic, right down in New Orleans. So Bethany Boltman has a collective foundation through the community which raises monies, okay, but not paid for health care, but it goes a bit to the clinic for the support staff, but it actually goes to the bars and to provide jobs for the musicians. So they go and work, and they make money, they get their services covered at the clinic. And it was better obviously under Obamacare, but so that's another model, a collective way of working. So don't expect to get a handout from the banks, thanks TD, and or the insurance companies, thanks Manulife, but they're out for profit. Okay. So that's kind of a arm wavy answer to getting benefits. Yeah.